Good evening. So I will record this PowerPoint lecture for you. I hope you're all staying safe. It is currently snowing sideways at my house, so things are getting interesting. So we're going to talk about ACEs. If you already watched the video, great. If not, this won't hinder anything. It just is a supplement to the video, so you can watch it before or after. ACEs was for Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACE, and better known as ACEs. And it's how you understand how they impact a child's life. So the next research you will see was sponsored by SBCTC, which is a state board for community and technical colleges, and in conjunction with some different medical organizations like Kaiser Permanente and things like that in the area. This study was huge. It originated in Washington State. So when you watch the video, she is originally from California and learned about this study, but the original study was done in Washington State. So adverse childhood experiences is abuse, neglect, or indicators of family dysfunction. As you can see, the numbers that are listed there, it can be anywhere from physical, sexual, emotional abuse, neglect, to witnessing domestic violence, to mental illness of any kind, drug addiction, parent discord, so divorce, separation, abandonment, and incarceration of parents. So ACEs has many impacts throughout lifespan. So looking at this, you can see exactly where the childhood adverse reactions, how it affects brain development, adaptations on the brain, and then the effects are kind of around that. So chronic disease, poverty, obesity, risky sex crimes, that kind of thing. Alcohol and drug use are also part of that. Next, a child with a neutral start, so an infant that had neutral start, typical birth, healthy birth, and then down towards the bottom, it will show you different progressions of brain, individual, and outcome. And then at the top three, it's brain, individual, and outcome as per with traumatic stress. So individuals, things that to know as a teacher that can impact children are edgy, hot-tempered, quick to act, hypervigilant, and brawn over brain. So they have that fight more than the flight. And as a teacher, it's important to know these kinds of things. You may not actually know what their ACE score is, or if they have an ACE score, because many parents do not want to divulge a lot of that information. But if you have children that have a lot of those symptoms, it's good to take into account that it could be an ACE score and not part of their personal makeup, I guess is a good way to put it. Next is integrated science findings, so the fast facts. I will let you know I'm going through this relatively quickly. This will also be posted within your content for the week. So the class content where you found the video and your ACE sheet to get your own score. I'm just going through this now to give you some background information, and you are more than welcome to look at the PowerPoint in a much slower pace at a later time if you want to. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, she's not leaving me any time to take notes. You have that available. So you can click through it anytime. So this is a little bit harder to see. So early trauma and stress, the predictable patterns of brain development traits and behaviors are next. So you can see some typical things that you might see in a child, which is ADHD or social isolation, poor understanding or conflict or social cues. And then you have significant risk of early use, abuse of alcohol, tobacco, illicit or prescription drugs. So, and how those play out in individuals. So at the end, it shows low wage jobs, unemployment, public assistance, prison, chronic health problems, and debilitating mental health. In the next slides that are coming up, you also see a breakdown of this that I think is more interesting. So high cost to public is chronic illness. Obviously, pharmaceuticals or prescriptions. Employment stability is good, or is a big one, a good indicator. And then our criminal justice, the cost to our criminal justice. And then lifelong poverty. So what kinds of supports do taxpayers pay out in accord because of ACEs? So here's some of those graphs I was talking about. So ACEs are common, so one or more have an ACE score, or is 62%, and 0 is 38%. So they're far more common than you think. Okay. 26% of adults report 3 or more ACE scores. 5% have 6 or more. And that's a huge number looking at what ACEs covers. Sorry, I got distracted by the snow for a minute. Looking at this, I think is interesting. So looking at Washington school classrooms for 30 children, which is a huge classroom size, but it gives you a good breakdown. It shows that we have 6 students with no ACE score, but you have 5 students with 1, 6 with 2 or more, 3 with 3 ACEs, 7 with 4 to 5, and 3 with 6 or more. So this is a good visual. I mean, at least for me, because I like the more like visual, tangible that I can kind of say, okay, this is what plays out of what a classroom would look like. So how many of your children are suffering with at least 1 ACE score? And it's quite significant. Prevalence of ACEs in court involving youth and adults. So the lighter color shows juveniles. For those of you that don't know, juvenile court is typically not below age 8, so it starts at 8 years old. And then adults. And adults can, depending on the crime, adults can start anywhere from 16 and up. But there are times when it's they deem a child an adult for depending on the crime. So I want to point that out. If you look at this, you can see that 0 to 1 ACE score, and then how likely they are to be prevalent within the court system, and how much it impacts children over adults. So that 2 to 3 ACE scores, you have 50% of those children that will be involved in the court system. Okay. Juvenile offenders, so ACEs in school experiences. So this is for more suspensions or early suspension. And again, you can see how ACEs really plays a role in a child's success within the school system. This is looking at special education or below a 2.0 GPA. And again, you can see the outcomes of the increased number of ACE scores and the amount of children that would be put in special education because of that, or that would not be successful in completing school at a satisfactory grade. Felony of reoffense. So this is looking at males. And this is looking at, so before we looked at offenders for juvenile and adult offenders, this is looking at the males and for a second offense. So they were in the court system or prison system once and they got out, and this is reoffense. So you can look at 1 year reoffense or 2 year reoffense. So based on the findings, Tacoma Urban and Pierce County Juvenile Court are looking for ways to work with schools. So that's Raymond Hall, if you all know of that in the area. They believe that catching problems early, perhaps at the first time, suspension or before, could make a big difference. And so this is playing out literally within our area. So how might you apply this information within your work or your family? What does that look like? So I really want you to think about that. We might talk more about that at the beginning of class next week, just so you have somebody to bounce that off and you can come up with other ideas on what that would look like. And then, so key components of resilience. So children who have been exposed to ACEs. So the resilience is really looking at capabilities, attachment and belonging. So feeling like attaching to a teacher. It doesn't mean clinging to you. It just means having that emotional attachment and that safe space. And then feeling like they belong with their peers. So being included and not being singled out for any one reason. And then their community culture or spirituality can play a huge role in supporting and uplifting students that hold ACE scores. So what's the potential? So it will help with healthcare costs. So how do we modify that healthcare curve to make sure that children with ACEs are going to be covered for life with whatever they have? Again, it would dramatically reduce mental health and disorders and disabilities if we could reduce ACE scores. And ACE scores is a lot of education, right? It will help stop that cycle, not only a cycle of poverty, but a cycle of what's included in an ACE score. A lot of times parents, like, we give information on smoking or drug addiction or alcoholism, but do we really tell them what the cost is of exposing a child to an ACE score? And do they have the ability to stop that, whether for the next generation or for the current? So looking at that, like can you educate a parent without making them feel targeted or blamed, or like you think that they may possibly have an ACE score that they're passing on to their child. So that's something to think about, because it's hard, right? You don't want to come out and say, hey, did you know this? Because then parents are going to say, hey, why do you think I might be abusing my child, or my child's exposed to mental health issues or that kind of thing? So you really want to be careful of that. But we also need to figure out a way that we can educate parents. So I hope this helped. I'm almost used up my 15 minutes allotment of this recording thing. And so this will be posted, obviously, for you if you're seeing this. And I just went from basically no snow to about a half an inch during this video. So maybe you'll get some snow soon too. I will see you all next week. Please reach out if you have any questions. And then or comments, and then I will try to do another video for your assignment. I'm just gonna have to put some stuff together for that one. So I will talk to you soon.